So hi there everybody and welcome to our video where I am now going to be speaking with the very lovely Inbaal, who is a psychic tarot reader and witch. And I have to
Hi.
say, Inbaal and I go back some years, don't we?
Yes, we first met going into a TV studio. Well, first met that I knew of. I think we've had friends in common before. By friends, I mean, psychic friends before, and we have come across each other before. But the first time we spoke to each other was doing a reading for, was it Ronald Riveron that we both read
That's
for?
right. Yes, on Mystic Challenge, which
He
was it.
liked you.
Well, actually, wasn't that an exciting time? That was such a blast.
It was a blast, and it was the birth of the psychic element of living TV, which was a new channel at the time, and it was trying different things, and it kind of clicked with the psychic thing, and it kept going, and it created some enormous shows. And for the rest of its natural life, it kept going with mediumistic elements, and it really was a very exciting moment to watch all that come into being.
And we were there.
We were there. It was a lot of fun.
And I think our paths crossed again, um, because I know you don't live in London anymore. You're now in my part of the world, up in the north. But I
Yeah.
think our paths crossed again because you were very much on the witch scene, the pagan
Yes,
scene rather, down in London.
I
Uh,
was.
was it the
Before
Secret
the
Key?
pagan scene, I actually attended one of your courses, which was hugely transformational for me. I'd already been reading cards a lot, but in the course, you introduced all sorts of different ways and kind of opened my mind to how you could read anything at all. And I feel like, thanks to your encouragement, I can read this shelf right here, no problem. So I attended that
Oh,
course.
that's very kind of
And
you to say.
not at all. And yes, I was involved with the pagan scene in London for really sort of my formative 20s. And I used to give a lot of talks and attend moots and events and help organize stuff. So I was really elbow deep in the pagan scene.
Yeah. And so now you're up in the north. I know that you're very busy as a reader, and I know that you've got lots of clients from all over the world, and I also know that you're really highly thought of. So, I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy that you could join me today in this chat and share some wisdom around the Fool card.
Thank you.
Because
I feel so honored to be asked. So we're not going to waste the whole video admiring each other.
okay, so so the Fool card. I think it's the very beginning of a journey, and I think it's always interesting when he flops onto that table. I don't know about you, but my keywords for the Fool would be new adventures, new beginnings. That courage, that leap of faith. That leap of faith seems to be, um, the most famous adage with the Fool. What do you think?
I'm so excited that you asked me specifically for the full episode, because what you don't know is that it's one of my absolute favorite cards, and the one that I personally relate to more than any other card. The leap of faith is exactly the focal point of it. But for me, it's all about everything that happens before he steps onto that picture, all the thinking that would have gone with it. It's a chap that will have had to live his life not listening to criticism, not reading the Twitter comments. It's somebody who lives in his own head. So coming up to having that picture taken as he's about to step off that cliff is something that I relate to, because being different is what it's about. But also, everything that happens after he steps off that cliff, because to me, he's taking that leap of faith and he will always win. I believe that if you don't listen to naysayers, if you don't believe in gravity, it won't grab you. I root for the full in every situation. I'll see someone alternative, I'll see a goth, somebody who's sort of breaking free from society, and I'll stop and clap. The full is who I aspire to be. It's who I kind of relate to in small ways, but I feel like, I still live in the regular world. It's who I aspire to be, somebody that really doesn't give a flip what anyone says. And I love him and admire him for it.
It was very interesting what you said about he is what you aspire to be. That's a very interesting perspective, and it's not one that I have to say that I consider fully.
Yeah. it's I'm sure it's true for all alternative people, and I'm sure it's true for a lot of people that are interested in the spiritual way of life. But most of us will have been different unless you came from a household that embraced the spiritual and allowed you to go through all your interesting ages and stages. You won't be able to really live the life of the full, but he is someone that will speak to you. Seeing it for me as an aspiration is because I think listening to other people's opinions is not a pathway to happiness. Doing you is. And for me, the full is the original "you do you" slogan, which is kind of big now, but I'm thinking there wasn't that much of it even 10 and 15 years ago. The call to conform, which to me is abhorrent. I think there is nothing worse than suggesting to someone that they've got to fit in a little bit more, give yourself up a little bit more in the pursuit of what? A more mainstream partner, higher earnings, things that really don't equate to happiness at all. For me, being able to live like the full is happiness. It might be a personal perspective, but look how the sun shines on him. Look. And that's not my main deck. This is. And
Yes.
in the
I was
Thoth,
going to ask you
he is.
which deck you prefer.
I'm a Thoth girl through and through. I absolutely adore it. And here, the Fool is almost an elevated form of this guy, where this guy has got the little yippity dog. This one has got some kind of a big cat. I want to say tiger, but I'm no zoologist. A tiger, a leopard, someone is actually biting into his thigh and warning him and saying, if you step over that edge, terrible things can happen. So he's not as loyal as the doggy. You've also got his the elements. He's got fire. He's got this thing could be ice, could be crystal. I'm no scholar. I'm just a big fan. So this four almost bridges the way between where he is and the magician, because he creates magic. And really, there's no bigger magic than that leap. The magician wouldn't be able to create his magic if he didn't really, really, really believe. The fool wouldn't be able to step off that cliff if he didn't really, really believe. So he is a character that is really close to my heart and someone I really look up to. And I feel like the first radical thing about him is using the digit 0 there. He's not even in the numbers. I love that. I love people that just go off grid or that don't have a mobile number. What's your number? I don't have one. Great, good for you. I mean, very complicated, but good for you. I admire everything about him. I find him radical, but I also feel like his age might be coming.
I think the Fool is almost like the beginning of an existential journey where we begin to understand who we are. And then I love that what you've just said about it's time to do you. And you know, I think it's especially important. This is the time of the Fool, particularly as because of the global circumstances with COVID and one thing and another, we're all having to be compliant to kind of rules and regs about how we socialize and how we operate. So it's interesting that the Fool perhaps is coming out regularly in readings because we're being asked to be ourselves, if you like, amidst all of these laws and legislations which, to all intents and purposes, are meant to keep us safe.
They are meant to keep us safe, but I feel like there's little moments of Fool that jump forward because that call to be compliant can't be the same for everyone across the board. Just as a very teeny tiny example, my husband's mobile phone is in fact a BlackBerry. Really, a BlackBerry? Even the US Defense have stopped using them 10 years ago. Yes, a BlackBerry. And track and trace doesn't work on BlackBerries. So we have to go into places and they're like, have you checked in with track and trace? And he's got to say, it doesn't work on my phone. And for me, that's a little moment of Fool because you're not going to tell me what phone to buy because your app doesn't work on it. And really, it's like a little pet hate that I've got. For example, if I ring up a place and they say, "Oh, it's not in our policy," it's not in our policy, and I get a bit full there, and I say, "Well, in my policy, it is. I don't work for you, so I don't have to comply with your policy. Obviously not in matters of public health, but in matters of, we can't email you the agreement. It has to be by post. That's our policy." And I revert right back to the Fool and right back to the, stubborn little child I was. And I say, "I'm sorry, your policies mean nothing to me. I don't work for you." See why I relate to him so much?
Yeah, no, that's a really good example, actually. It's those quirky little idiosyncrasies that stop us
Yes.
from being completely vanilla with whatever is happening around us. And I think it's really important to hang on to those little nuances, and the Fool is very much about that. So I was wondering maybe if we could compare some of the symbolism. You've got your beloved Thoth deck, and I have my Rider-Waite Smith deck. So, we can start off with 0. Do you have that 0 on Thoth?
Yes, there is a little 0 up here.
Oh yes, of course, yes.
It's like a type 0. It's not part of the drawing like it is on yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I
So
think
just
it's
for a
the
little bit of
colors are
background,
the same, which
yes. Oh yes, they are. They're not that dissimilar. And I think,
right. So we've got the yellow background. And we've got the green, yours has got a little green skirt. This one has got a green little cat suit.
Nice little number going on there. I think the colouring is. I think it's.
I know it's like all the stages of Freddie Mercury.
The colouring, I think it's in keeping with the Tree of Life.
Oh,
According to Paul Foster Case, I think.
That's probably what it is.
And I think that the Thoth deck, wasn't it painted by Lady Frida Harris?
There's Yes, and I love it that both decks were painted by ladies, both painted by women.
Absolutely. Yes. Actually, as I'm thinking about it, the Thoth deck there is very interesting. It reminds me of the Charles IV deck, where the Fool is depicted as Orion, who is part of the Major Canis. And because originally on the Major Canis, it wasn't a dog, it was a lion. And so I think that
Ah,
we can actually look at the Fool as being an astrological nod to that part of the ephemeris,
that's very
the
possible.
major and the minor canis.
There is actually a lot going on from the animal kingdom in this one. You've got an alligator at the bottom.
Yeah,
You've got the butterfly to show how free he is. You've
yes.
got a dove, and it's a dove with some, light sprinkles flying out of it. You've got the caduceus. I never know if I pronounce it correctly, but you've got like the
Mm,
doctory symbol.
mm.
So we've got kind of a Mercury thing. He's got a little bit of everything.
I wonder what the
We've got
crocodile
some
means.
roses and stuff, and I can't remember, I'm no scholar, just a fan. I've read some books about it, but I've never read the Book of Thoth all the way through. Um, and I think I have a copy of 777. I'm almost sure I read it, but I don't remember anything from it. I'm a real lay person, big fan, but a real lay person when it comes to all the symbolism. Um, Another interesting thing that this fool has got is all the astrological symbols in his
Oh
cap
yeah,
there. Can you see they're all bubbles with the star signs on, with the planets on? Has it got the alchemy as well? Yeah, I think it's got alchemy symbols there as well. So that's to show, that's to kind of drive home the fact that he
yes,
doesn't need anything else. He has everything he needs. No,
yes,
no need for anything else. And what else have we got there? It is, this one is just so much busier because this one is straightforward and simple. And I
yes,
love that about it because the full really is straightforward and simple, and there's no need for any more adornment apart from that big red feather. What is the big red feather?
Ah, now this is interesting. This is something that I found out recently. Um,
Ah,
the feather in the cap, on the one hand, it means achievement and accomplishment insofar as that we are accomplishing coming into a physical birth from spirit, from consciousness. But also, if you have a look, he's got this little jaunty little cap,
yeah.
which is the Phrygian cap, which is the cap of liberty and freedom. So
Oh,
he's freeing up consciousness. I see the fool as a paradox. So on
yeah.
the one hand, he's coming from the wide open spaces of consciousness in the universe, but at the same time, he's liberating that consciousness in the imprisonment of the physical body. So
Right.
he's bringing consciousness to the earth plane, and the cap of liberty, the Phrygian cap, is that he will his aim is to be completely free here, which ties in wonderfully with your conversation about we must walk to the beat of our own drum,
Yeah.
that we the fool is not about to conform or do as he's told. He's going to live his life in its as many ways as he can.
Yeah. Now, this actually makes me think because I kind of I I live far away from everything now. You know what it's like here, and I don't really get to talk to other readers that often. Do you think the fool ever goes wrong? Do you think he ever steps off that cliff and something dreadful happens? Because I'm a nonconformist, so it's such a guiding light for me. I raise my children in to question everything and to not conform as well. So he's my guy. But do you think if he comes up for conformists, he could mean bad news?
If he comes up for conformity, I think that he could be challenging
Yeah.
because maybe he does say, look, don't take things so seriously, and that I think the thing is about the fool when he takes up the physical plane. When I learned when I was when I worked mediumistically, that our guides actually are apprehensive or watch us with compassion, shall I say, as we take up our physical birth, because they know we're in for a bit of a time.
Yeah.
They know that we are going to, fall down sometimes. And, the quality of life is going to be about whether we can pick ourselves back up. Because, we've decided to take this earth birth, which is all about struggle, but struggle teaches us how to love. And we can see that in the fool's rose, which is the rose of Sharon. And this rose is about innocence. It's about everything is perfect. That by trying to be perfect, we become imperfect. But the rose's thorny stem is painful and ouchy. So we're reminded of our drive for perfection by those painful, struggling moments, which indeed it's those that bring out the perfection of love itself.
Oh,
And I
that's
think what the
beautiful.
Fool card warns us about is making inappropriate life choices.
Right.
Because as we bring that consciousness, it's our willpower that drives that consciousness, which of course is the next card, the Magician,
Yeah.
who suddenly realizes he's got all these skills, he's got all these tools, and he can wield them to craft a life for himself. But it's really important that he makes the right life choices, which very few of us do wonderfully well all the time. And again, it's about being able to adapt and adjust when we do make poor life choices, that we make those experiences ultimately work for themselves, as I have discovered in my own life. So to answer your question, I think that the Fool can be challenging to conformists because it's saying that nothing's black and white.
No.
And that the very fact that nothing is perfect is perfection itself. Everything is exactly as it should be in many respects.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is, even though it's the start of a journey, there is like a growth lesson in it. I know that as a nonconformist, if I choose and if it suits my purposes, I can conform temporarily. The
You can
question
play the
is whether,
game. This is the Fool all over. We have to play the game. Sometimes, you have to get in to come out the other side, but it's about our approach.
yeah,
We love the Fool, don't we? He's such a good card. I mean, sometimes when he hits that table in a personal reading, I kind of think, okay, where are we going with this? Because for me, he can often mean things are going to happen out the blue. That I might think, oh, I'm on this path and ABC is going to happen. And yeah, I'm in control. Sometimes he can remind me that I'm not in control at all, that there is no control, that life will happen. I've just got to ride it.
absolutely. You're on a path and you're moving forward.
So what else have you got from your own card that is interesting that you'd like to share with us?
What's interesting in the Thoth deck, and it is very, very Thoth, is that in fact you've got a glowing sun right there in his base chakra. So you've still got something controlling you. The Fool doesn't necessarily act without agency. He's not doing it for no reason. He might have his, passion leading him. He might have his heart leading him. We've got like a little heart there. It could even be his brain. He's got horns here and a crystal on his head. So he's got his reasons. I wouldn't question him, but he's got his reasons. So I feel that Crowley and Lady Harris must have put an awful lot of thought into this one, because it's such a busy, busy card here. And I've even got balancing of opposites, the union of opposites, because we've got the fire and ice here, which we will meet later on in the art cards. And I think possibly even in the lovers. So he's kind of the starting point for lots of other little bits. Sorry, I just realized this twisted thing is it a peacock flying downwards or something? It's definitely a wing of some sort. One of the best things for me about the Thoth in general is that there is a lot in them. And in a way, especially because I'm not a scholar and I don't necessarily know all the historic reasons why every little brushstroke is there, as an intuitive reader, it gives me so much to go on. I've got an entire crystal ball of foolishness here. And sometimes it'll just be that little heart that pops up. And sometimes it'll just be that six pack, which is very carefully drawn onto there. And sometimes I even see it for the birth of twins for no bigger reason apart from how there's two naked, very infant figures, nondescript, hugging each other at the bottom.
So, Inbaal, you've made a really interesting point there. So that when you look at your card, you can pull out individual symbols and they will almost act like psychic triggers for you for information for your clients.
Yeah, that's my favorite way of working, and that's my favorite way of teaching. And I feel like that was influenced a lot by what I learned from you, because you showed us how to read from a flower. That was mind-blowing. And the flower here is just as valid. There's so much in it that you might not even have to relate to the rest of the card, except for that you do a little bit because keywords. But then when you go into detail, which I'm sure you do, but you might not realize that you do because of your mediumistic training, you just receive the words. I'm a very visual person, so I run with the images and I look at the figure and suddenly sort of glance that it's actually looking backwards, and I think, why is it looking backwards? What is it trying to tell? So that's my big geek tarot thing, how much there is in there, and how I want to say 25, 26 years on from when I first picked up a deck, I still find new things every day.
Marvelous. Really,
I love it.
I really understand that. I never get bored. It's a constant source of stimulation.
Yes, absolutely. For me as well. And just the journey between myself and the cards, yourself and the cards, is very fulfilling in itself. But when you take it out into the world and see how they interact with other people, with the client base, how it informs their lives, that's when it really becomes not just a little passion, but a life quest.
That's very powerful.
Thank you.
So to end with, what advice would you have, Inbal, for people who are about to embark or to take their tarot journey to a new level?
As in making it professional?
Yeah,
I
or how to read the cards, for example, symbolically. What would you
I
say?
always I always say practice makes perfect. practice, 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 practice. I know that for the first few years that I had the cards just in my handbag, and really all the years since, I never stopped. I've not spent a day away from them. But at the start, I would just have them with me all the time. I'd have them with me on holiday. I would check out things for myself when there was no one around me, and check out things for everybody when there were people around me. Practice, 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 practice. I think that's what makes an excellent reader, because some people might have very vast and impressive spiritual gifts, and some people might come to it from an ability to empathize with people, and some people just enjoy playing with spooky stuff. It's all valid. Where you've come from is all valid. But if you want to be an excellent anything, if you want to be an excellent blank, practice, practice, practice. If you want to be an excellent tarot reader, sit with your deck and don't stop practicing.
Thank you so much, Inbal. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation about the Fool, and the Fool brought us back together, as the Fool does. So we've been able to have this enjoyable time together, and I'm sure people will really benefit from what you've said. So thanks,
Thank you. I
Inbal.
really enjoyed
Really
it.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.